Welcome back to This Day Live, the Sunday talk show here on the Arise News channel. I still have with me in the studio Professor Bola Akinterinwa, Director General, Bolitech Center for International Diplomacy and Strategic Studies, former Director General, Nigerian Institute of International Affairs. Yemi Adamolekun is also here. She's Executive Director in Office Enough. Arise News Analyst Modele Sarafa-Yusuf is also in the studio. And of course, Wale Gomez, Managing Director of Quant Capital Limited. Let me start with you, Wale Gomez. You've just listened to APERE, the gentleman in charge of the social safety net coordination in Nigeria. And I know you have dual citizenship. Now, in the United States, we've heard about COVID-19 stimulus package. People in the United States, they just get an alert in their bank accounts. But here in Nigeria, it looks like rocket science. We waste a lot of energy over who is the urban poor, who is the rural poor, who has been given money, what is the conditional cash transfer is all about. Is this in rocket science?
Yeah, thank you very much. I was hearing all the things all the Turanchi was talking about. This thing is not rocket science, like you said. It's very easy. In Nigeria, the people that are closest to the poor are the local governments. We can make it so easy that everybody should go and register in your local government, get a department under the local government that disburse funds to people. And that makes life easy. In America, the structure is there. Your social security number is there. Well, thank God they're building one here now. But your social security number is there. Your bank account is tied to your social security. They send the money to your account. If you're a citizen, you get your money. All this urban poor, local rich, and all this, it just makes. I think they just try to make it so difficult for people to understand. After a while, the people that call themselves the poor, they'll get tired of this because they know we say here in billions, millions, and I haven't seen anybody that said he has received one kobo. So I don't know where we have to make it so difficult for people. It's so easy. It shouldn't be this difficult. All right?
Well, Professor Akinterinwa, I know you live in a part of town where a lot of urban poor people are there, but it looks like the remote sensing technology has not identified you. Or are you the one resisting this stimulus package from the Nigerian government?
I have sympathy for APERE. Sympathy because we Nigerians refuse to acknowledge the truth about our existence. Political governance in Nigeria is largely predicated on dishonesty. And this is the bitter truth. So if you have an Oshibaju who now wants to redress the situation, there's no way you wouldn't talk about this geoscience something. There's no way you wouldn't talk about rocket science. They need to do so. You see, the ordinary Nigerian, is necessarily fraudulent. That is the bitter truth. When they are distributing whatever they have to distribute, you will see that people will collect 2, 3, 10 times. There. In the morning, they are Joseph Francis. In the afternoon, they are Francis Joseph. And they will arrange all this. So I wouldn't blame anybody who is now trying to make access to it difficult. America, where you talk about life made easy and they credit your account, the society is quite different. They are more patriotic. Americans are generally patriotic. Nigerians are not. Even the people you put in charge, you've just said, yes, I'm a pensioner. How much does a pensioner before 2004, how much is he earning? It's not a big deal. They are poorer than the urban poor they are talking about. And you see, 2 quick points about what APERE said. He said that 68% of 5,000 given can go for food. The 32% for investment. That is unnecessarily too hypothetical. It cannot work that way. Secondly, he talked about science, always dealing with facts. I won't quarrel with that. The issue is that science, as fact, is only valid until that particular fact is set aside by a new fact. It doesn't always stay permanently. The beauty in ordinary level chemistry, we were told that atom is the smallest indivisible particle of a molecule. But in advanced chemistry, A-level chemistry, we were told that an atom can be divided. And they gave the example of uranium, atomic weight, that it could be divided by fission. So in this case, anybody who is dealing with O-level chemistry will stand by that particular fact. But when you get to another level, you will now discover that, look, that fact is no longer tenable. Consequently, in this case, I think that the bottom line is to follow social security the way it is in developed countries. It's neither meant for urban poor, rural poor. It's for everybody.
Everybody.
So what is this policy of something?
Do you agree with Prof that all of us should get this stimulus package from the Nigerian government, and that the classification as either urban or rural should not apply? And what difference will 5,000 naira per month make for any Nigerian, whether rural or urban?
I don't agree with Prof that everybody should get the 5,000 naira cash transfer. The poor should get it because they don't have access to what people like Prof have access to. So
Prof is a pensioner. Prof is a pensioner.
Executive pensioner.
I disagree with him. He has investments. He has a home. He has a car. He has all of these things, and he still collects his pension, which is more than 5,000 naira. So he doesn't deserve it. Having said that, I think that 5,000 is not much money, but it is better than nothing. How much can the government afford to give? This is what they can afford to give that will not impact their bottom line. So let's have that first. As I said on this program last week, some people can use the money to start a small business. They can actually, as he said, just use it to feed their children, buy grains, buy foodstuff. So it will work. It would serve its purpose. The only point with which I disagree, out of the things that Mr. APERE said, is the phenomenon of the feminization of poverty. I disagree with him that that is not the case, because that is the case. Statistics in Nigeria indicate that 70% of poor Nigerians are actually women. And indeed, in the rural areas, more than half of rural women live below the poverty line. They lack access to basic education, decent nutrition, good health care, social services. And this phenomenon is getting worse because of the all of the conflicts that's happening, because now there are more female-led households. There are more widows who have been made so by the death of their husbands because of banditry, because of terrorism. So there is a feminization of poverty. Even when they have ideas, they don't have money to fund the ideas that they have. They have no access to credit. So I disagree with Mr. APERE on that score. But I also want to point out that the reason we're asking this many questions is because historically we've found out that monies like this tend to go into some black hole that we just cannot trace. So government, the onus is on government to prove us wrong, to say that this is where this money is going, these are the people that are benefiting. And when you hide under the cloak of secrecy, under the cloak of confidentiality, and there's no transparency, then it becomes a problem. Because clearly you're not giving everybody. Not all the urban poor or the rural poor are going to benefit from this. But if one urban poor man finds out that his rural cousin benefited, then he doesn't feel as bad. He hopes that sometimes it'll come round. So we need to do more about transparency.
Well, Modele Sarafa-Yusuf, if you could just hold your thoughts, we'll take a quick commercial break, and then when we return, the conversation will continue. We'll be right back. It's still Thisday Live, the Sunday talk show, here on the Arise News channel. Welcome back to Thisday Live, the Sunday talk show, here on the Arise News channel. I still have with me in the studio Professor Bola Akinterinwa, Director General, Bola Center for International Diplomacy and Strategic Studies, and former Director General of the Nigerian Institute of International Affairs. Yemi Adamolekun is also here. She's Executive Director in Office Enough. Arise News analyst Modele Sarafa-Yusuf and Wale Gomez, Managing Director of Quant Capital Limited. Before we went on break, Modele Sarafa-Yusuf, you were making a number of points, and Prof of Air has been protesting that your comment about him having a house and collecting pension, that he would like to have a rebuttal. But if you could just conclude, your line of thought before we went on that break.
I can yield the floor to Prof if he insists, but the truth is that more women are poor in Nigeria, and government needs to do more about that. So, Prof,
yes, you were saying as a pensioner, you also want to take the 5,000 naira.
In fact, more than 5,000 naira if they give. First of all, after 2004, it is contributory system. Before, the policy is 7.5%. You contribute, government contributes. It is what you now essentially contribute that will be given to you. Let me tell you an accommodation. This federal government, dating back to the time of Jack Conde, when he was Minister of Housing, they collected money from people, including me, to give us accommodation. My wife took a salary advance in Skybank. Now, they deducted all that. Up to today, no refund of the money. Eventually, we paid 265,000. Now, Lagos state government, under Buba Marwa, they gave us land in this, how do they call this place? On the bridge. No.
So yes. You didn't follow up?
No,
you don't have
Julius
the papers?
Baja. No, because in this particular case, Buba Marwa gave us land 800 meters per square. Tinubu took over, reduced it to 700. The land, I think is something not. Up to today, Isheri not. Now, by the time you go there in the morning, afternoon, whether the federal government or the state government have not been given, and I paid, they have not refunded. So I manage myself because I refuse to steal, because I'm against any act of indiscipline. If I am poor today, it's simply because I want to remain patriotic all along. And I suffer. I suffer more than all these people.
Professor Akinterinwa, I'm sure you are APERE, the man in charge of the National Safety Net Coordination, Social Safety Net Coordination. He's still watching. Well, we just identified an urban poor member here, Professor Akinterinwa, and I hope their geo-sensing technology will locate you and capture you, and you will get onto that rapid response register. Yes. Well, quickly, let's go to Yemi Adamolekun. Yemi Adamolekun, well, are you on the rapid response register?
No, and I shouldn't be.
Okay. Unlike Prof.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Thank you. I'd like to really commend Mr. APERE for, one, his patience, because you asked him the same questions in different ways, different times, and he was quite patient about answering them as you asked them. And I think he also, in my opinion, explained quite clearly how the rural poor database has been designed. And again, I followed Miriam Wise's work when she was in charge of that unit, and I believe she did an excellent work in setting up the framework that he talked about and identifying who they are, having the community set their own standards so they don't feel anybody's being cheated. And I think in both the work that Miriam Wise did and his own articulation of that, I think it speaks to the rigor of that platform. I mean, later in her career, or in her time before she left, there was some attempt to politicize who got on the register the same way politicians were trying to influence who got on end power. But I think she was able to do a good work in holding her ground. Now, following that, there's been a lot, and unfortunately, the minister now, which, anyway, duplication of roles in many ways, but The minister now came in at a time where we then had this crisis. And again, obviously, because there's a pandemic, our politicians will be looking for places where they can get money for those in their constituencies. So there's been a lot of conversation around who is on the list and how does that work. Again, I think he did an excellent job with the rural poor, where the data is, and also referencing the fact that other organizations, UNDP, UN Women, are mining data from that database to also do their own cash transfers. So an easy way for anybody who's interested in sort of checking is to actually go through those organizations and say, the people you found, did they meet your criteria for people who are poor and underserved? On the other hand, however, I didn't quite understand how they got their urban poor. I understand the geotagging in terms of density, but once you now identify that this place has a lot of poor people in it, how then do you choose, how did you then identify the people that got on the rapid register? I missed his explanation of that. Maybe it was just me. But I think ultimately what we should take away from this, I commend the effort, because it just speaks to the fact that we do not have data. We don't count. We have a voters register. We have people who registered for their SIM cards, driver's license, passport, all of that. But Nigeria does not have a database of its citizens in any way, shape, or form, which is why, as we'll probably talk about later in the program, we're having a huge problem with national ID numbers. We're saying you have people's BVNs. Use that to give them ID numbers. BVNs are unique.
Yes.
People have driver's license. Triangulate all this data so people don't have to stand and get COVID-19 because you're making silly rules. And so the work that they've had to do with this social register just speaks to the fact that as a country, we don't have data. But what I also don't hear us talking about is how are we connecting all this data? Mr. Gomez made the point about local government. Yes, closest level of government to the people, they should be an integral part of this data collection and using this data. But I'll use Lagos State as an example. Last year during the crisis, when different organizations were trying to step up and give people in need, they couldn't rely on Lagos State to give them any data because Lagos State itself didn't have data. Even the palliatives Lagos was trying to share, it was relying on associations to give them names of people. And of course, not only were there rumors, I particularly know of politicians, as we later then saw, who manipulated the process to put their people on there to collect food they didn't have any intention of giving out to people in need. And then we then saw during the NSAS protest, not just the COVID one, which, let's be clear, they had a plan. The COVID's plan in defense of them was that they realized that this would be drawn out. So they decided not to give everything out at once so they could space it out. And unfortunately, it got vandalized. But there were politicians who the ones they had were meant to be given out at that time. And as Dr. Abati rightly said, ended up being packaged for parties like the State House of Assembly member in Lagos. But on that note, sorry, Dr. Abati, it was not NSAS protesters that vandalized those warehouses. They were simply hoodlums, whatever you want to call it, that went there. It was during NSAS protests, but they were not, you can't say, I mean, I was an NSAS protester. I'm sure you didn't see me vandalizing any warehouse. So that lumping everybody together, I wanted to clarify that.
Well,
and lastly,
in the context of NSAS protests in October 2020. I wasn't saying that NSAS protesters were the ones that attacked.
Okay, if you said NSAS protest,
it was a contest. The contest.
Thank you very much. And then lastly, I'll end on Prof's point about Nigerians being necessarily fraudulent. Uneasy with the framing, but I understand what you mean, that circumstances sort of, in a sense, reward fraudulence. Let me put it that way. So it's in a sense almost a necessary tool to survive. But, and I think again, this goes back to data. If we don't have a reliable central database of Nigerian citizens that's triangulated with BVN and national ID number and phone number, we will continually have situations where people can manipulate a system that has flaws in its design.
Well, Yemi, at this point, let's take another subject of interest. In the course of the week just ended, President Muhammadu Buhari on Tuesday replaced the military chiefs with new appointees. This comes after months of pressure on the government to replace them for handling the country's security challenges poorly. Presidential spokesman Femi Adesina announced the appointments in a statement, saying the president accepted the resignation of the former service chiefs and their retirement from service. The new service chiefs are Chief of Defense Staff, Major General Lucky Irabo, Chief of Army Staff, Major General Ibrahim Atahiru, Rear Admiral Zubairu Gambo, now the new Chief of Naval Staff, and Air Vice Marshal Isiaka Oladayo Amao, who has been appointed Chief of Air Staff. On Wednesday, the president met with the newly appointed service chiefs behind closed doors. After the meeting, the Chief of Defense Staff spoke to the media, saying the service chiefs would do all within their powers to ensure security of lives and properties and add value.
On behalf of the service chiefs, I'm assuring the nation security, peace and security. We believe that there will be value that will be added to the security disposition of the nation. The message for the president is that we, knowing the current security environment, must do everything possible to add value to the security disposition, and that the expectations are high, and we're quite mindful of that expectation. So we collectively will work to achieve that.
Well, Modele Sarafa-Yusuf, let me start with you. Well, two things. The former Chief of Defense Staff, General Abayomi Gabriel Olonishakin, says that his team did an excellent job. Former Chief of Army Staff, Lieutenant General Tuko Buratai, also said he improved professionalism and that he was able, with his team, to make a difference. Do you think that both of them are right in terms of their own self-assessment? And then the new team that is coming in, led by Major General Lucky Irabo, says that they will add value and that they would, do what the president wants them to do. Well, what are your expectations? What do you think in terms of the self-assessment of the team that just left?
Well, the team that just left said what we expected them to say. When you're leaving an office that you've occupied for 5 years, it is time for reflection, for, to assess what you have done. And I think they did the best that they could. Were they successful? History will be the judge of that. Were they very successful? History will be the judge of that. Did they do the best that they could under the circumstances? History will judge them. The problem, the fact that no local government is under the rulership of the insurgents is one thing that they can go home saying that they did. But is the security situation better now than it was 5 years ago when they came in? I think so. Could it be better? Yes, I think definitely it could be better. And of course, the new service chiefs are also saying what we expect them to say. We will come in and give... Yes, you want to say something?
Modele, yes, I'll need to interrupt you at this point. Let's take a quick commercial break. After that, I'll come back to you. Welcome back to this Live, the Sunday Talk Show here on the Arise News Channel. I still have with me Professor Bola Akinterinwa, Wale Gomez, Yemi Adamolekun, and Modele Sarafa-Yusuf. Now, Modele, you were talking about the change of service chiefs, your expectations about the new service chiefs, and the self-assessment attempted by the departing service chiefs. Back.
Yes, I have heard from people who know them that the new service chiefs are tried and tested hands, that they are professionals. They have been in the third tiers of operation for a long time, and people are looking forward to them doing the best that they can. But beyond the long-awaited change of guards, government, I think, needs to look at the other causes of insecurity and address them squarely. Some of those that I can readily think about are the elite manipulation of ethnicity and religious differences. For as long as government doesn't, and we as a people don't look at this, we'll continue to have these problems. Another problem that I think that we need to, that causes insecurity is the do or die politics that we see, systemic and political corruption, struggle for resources, just like the problems with the herders and the farmers. Struggle for resources, people in the Niger Delta who think that their resources are being carted away and they're not being taken care of. For as long as we don't look at those problems and deal with them, the work of these gentlemen will be made that much harder. Another problem that I can readily think about is material inequalities and unemployment and poverty. The weak security system is also a problem. There's underfunding. The Senate Committee on the Army, on the Navy, many times they've said that these institutions are underfunded. The service chiefs themselves have continued to say so. Well, I guess it is the government has to look at it first. But if this is a priority that is also impacting the economy, then government needs to fund these people properly. They need to give them equipment. Personnel needs to be trained, and more personnel need to be recruited, and the ones that are there need to be motivated. One thing that struck me when the service chief, the service chiefs that just departed, when their retirement was announced, the fact that soldiers were jubilating in barracks, I found that very embarrassing, which means that, when your boss leaves and you are celebrating and you are popping champagne, in quote, then there must have been a problem. Which is why I said history will judge the gentleman that just departed. Another problem, before I forget, that tends to lead to insecurity is our porous borders. People just stray from one country into our country and then go back to their country and after perpetuating evil. We also need to look at that. But other than that, I wish the gentlemen luck, and because it's in our interest that they succeed.
Well, Professor Akinterinwa, let me come to you. Well, did they resign? Did they retire? Or they were fired, as had been requested by Nigerians at all levels, long before President Buhari decided, as someone argued, to summon the courage to ask them to leave?
We have to provide a conjectural analysis in responding, since nobody has told us precisely whether it's a question of resignation, whether they are fired all along. What we do know so far is that we have been told that Mr. President has the right to hire and the right to also fire. But one can say that the situational reality on the ground is that of force majeure. They have to leave by reasons of force majeure. Because this time, Mr. President has been asked to remove them. He has not done so. And the situation of insecurity has been deepening. So in trying to provide a possible acceptable answer, I will say that, look, because of the questions I'm going to ask, which point to the fact that, look, they have opted to go by themselves. They might have discussed with Mr. President. They want to save their name. Modele rightly pointed out to the jubilation in barracks. If people are happy that you are going, it means that you didn't do well. But it doesn't mean that they have not done well. We know how we behave. I asked the first question, for instance, if somebody is second in command, or is in acting capacity, or is deputizing, does it mean that he's incapacitated from contributing meaningfully to the attainment of the objectives. In other words, if you are not the Director General, but you are acting or you are deputy, does that position necessarily prevent you from attaining your objective? Why am I asking that question? The Chief of Defense Staff, Lucky Irabo, was a former theater commander. So was the Chief of Army Staff,
Major General Ibrahim Atahiru.
So now in this case, they were part and parcel of the decision system. They were in the field. They were with Operation
Lafayette. Operation Lafayette.
So now, if they didn't do well, for instance, hypothetically, when they were theater commander, is it now that they now occupy the whole position that they will do better? Second question I want to ask, are the new service chiefs Boko Haramis in Nigeria military uniform? I ask the question because Goodluck Jonathan told us that there are Boko Haramis in government. And the issue now is that in the past, whenever any decision is taken, whenever they are going to the war front to do all those things, the enemy knows, that they are coming and they are killed. Finally, what I don't like in this particular case is that you elevate some people only to destroy some others. The people you retire unnecessarily, you bastardize their future. You can appoint new people without necessarily compelling people to go away. I think it's not fair.
Well, in this case, nobody has been compelled to go away. What we're told is that persons in course 33 and courses 34 and 35, who for reasons of seniority may now have to report to either their course-mates or to their former juniors, have on their own volunteered to resign and leave the service. However, if the Chief of Army Staff or the Chief of Defense Staff requires their services, they may, be asked to stay on. Some of them may even be posted out, but this is how it happens. The Commander-in-Chief reserves the right to hire and fire as he deems fit. Well, I'll come to you, Wale Gomez. We'll still go on a short break, but you can start. What's your view about this change of guards at the level of the service chiefs?
Okay. Thank you. My view now?
Go ahead.
Okay.
I'll do it in a minute. Take a break and then I'll come back.
I want to say, well, it took a long time for us to have a new team in place. And people have been complaining that why are we not changing? Why are we still having the same place? We're still keeping them and they're not performing and there's still insecurity. We want to thank the president, at least after 5 years, listen to the voice of the people and change. Hopefully, we will get a new... My only problem there is that how come there was a change of guard after the presidential election when there's a new team in America? There's a change of guard in Nigeria. So that's just my only observation there.
What's the connection between the U.S.?
I plead the fifth.
Well, maybe when we come back, I'll ask you to respond to that. We'll take another short break here on This Day Live, the Sunday talk show. When we return, the conversation will continue. Stay with us. Welcome back to This Day Live, the Sunday talk show here on the Arise News channel. Still with me, I have Professor Bola Akinterinwa, Director General, Bolitag Center for International Diplomacy and Strategic Studies. Yemi Adamolekun is still here, Executive Director in Office Enough, Arise News Analyst Modele Sarafa-Yusuf, and Wale Gomez, Managing Director of Quant Capital Limited. Well, before we went on break, Mr. Gomez, you were trying to draw some kind of connection between the politics of the United States and President Buhari's decision to change the service chiefs in Nigeria. I thought that was a long shot, quite far-fetched. But do you want to shed more light on that? Or?
Yeah, no. It's just my thinking. I was just thinking that why the coincidence that the day when we had a change of government in America, we had a change of military personnel in Nigeria. There's just something strange there in the whole thing. But I want to thank the president for even giving us a fresh face to fight this insecurity.
Well, your theory looks like a conspiracy theory because this coming week, the president will still have to worry about changing and appointing a new Inspector General of Police as the present Inspector General of Police goes on retirement.
That will make Nigeria-US relationship better.
That's what I was thinking.
Well, again,
that's my thought. That was my thought.
I say it's conspiracy theory. It's a case of reading motives, but what we can establish is that the president at last listened to public opinion.
Yeah.
And that's why some people have been saying, oh, finally. Or better late than never. We didn't want these service chiefs. At last, the president has listened to public opinion.
Officers who are
Yemi Adamolekun, let me come to you. Better late than never. Finally, public opinion prevailing. What's your take?
Okay, so I'm not going to thank Mr. President, but it is good to acknowledge we don't know. Mr. Gomez is doing conspiracy to the American elections, but who knows about why we have a change of heart. But I think what's important for us to keep in mind is also, again, the throwback to the powers that the president has in the Constitution. Section 17 says clearly, gives him powers to appoint and fire. So the service chiefs staying longer than civil service rules were all Mr. President. The Chief of Naval Staff was there 37 years. Mr. Buratai, 37 years. Mr. Oloni Shakin, 39 years. And Sadiq Abubakar was there for 41 years, when retirement is 35. Now, I think this is also instructive to the point we're making about people who voluntarily retired. It becomes very difficult when you keep people longer than these years because the people coming up behind them don't have an opportunity to grow or be promoted. So invariably, they are forced, if I want to use that word, to leave service, not having had the full opportunity to get to the top of their career because Mr. President made the kinds of choices that he did. But I dare say that if these men, since the president has the powers, if these men actually delivered on why they were there, then we won't probably have picked at it for too much. But they were there longer than the civil service rules at Mr. President's request. But I disagree with Ms. Modele that they did the best that they could. Without any fear of contradiction, I think the daily killings, kidnappings, happenings in the Northeast, happenings in the Northwest, their unwillingness to engage, Mr. President's unwillingness to go before the representatives of the people in the National Assembly to talk about security, all speak to the fact that they definitely were not doing the best that they could. And the Nigerian lives that we've lost and the ones that have been disrupted bear testament to that. And history, indeed, will document that against them. On the issue of local governments not being under Boko Haram control, I mean, figuratively, yes. But in practical terms, speak to people who live in those areas, and that's not their reality. Because of Bring Back Our Girls, some of our girls are coming back. Yay! Okay. Because of Bring Back Our Girls, I do follow happenings in some local governments in Borno, and that's not been the case. In several local governments, people can move freely, as we've seen their produce are being taken over. Boko Haram comes in to basically find ways to feed and continue to recruit more young men. So they might not be officially in control in an administrative sense, but they are in control of people's lives. And I believe that's the more important parameter that we should put in there. Again, to the point about subordinates jubilating. Again, if we're talking about history being kind or not being kind, that's huge. If the people who work under you are excited that you are leaving, that speaks volumes. But even before them jubilating, we'd seen people leave the army because they said, look, I enlisted to serve my country. But part of that enlisting is certain terms of service that I expect. I expect to get paid. I expect to have the resources I need to do my job. And when that is no longer the case, and you're literally putting me out there to be killed, I no longer want to serve in that capacity. Let's remember when we had played the clip from the gentleman from South Africa who came in to help with Boko Haram in 2015. One of the things he said very clearly is that the...
Hello? Yemi? Okay, we seem to have a problem with the connection there, but very quickly we'll take the next topic, which is also something very interesting. Yemi, if you are hearing me, just hang in there. I may come back to you shortly. The latest Transparency International corruption ranking is out, and Nigeria has dropped 3 places, scoring lower than its record in the previous year. The country is now in the 149th place out of 180 countries, with a corruption perception index score of 25 out of 100, indicating that corruption is perceived to have worsened in Nigeria within the last year. The presidency has responded to Transparency International, saying the report is not an accurate portrayal of the facts on ground. Presidential spokesman Garuba Shehu stated that the Buhari administration deserves credit for diminishing corruption in the public service, and we continue to vigorously support prevention, enforcement, public education, and enlightenment activities of anti-corruption agencies. He added that the government is analyzing the sources of data used in the analysis. Well, Professor Akinterinwa, I'll start with you on this one. I know you are an anti-corruption campaigner. You work with the EFCC, right, to campaign against corruption. Do you share the view expressed by Transparency International and the very robust rebuttal from the presidency as articulated by Garuba Shehu?
We work with the ICPC.
Who is the ICPC?
ICPC.
Okay. Yes.
I'm the Lagos State Coordinator for Anti-Corruption, NABC, National Anti-Corruption Volunteer Corps. I share the view of Transparency International. If I do not share the view of the media assistant to Mr. President, it's simply because as a scholar, by the time you say efforts at anti-corruption are fruitful, are positive, you must give us a bit of statistics to see. The major problem in Nigeria is simply that we have a conception, a definition of corruption that is couched in technical terms, limited to embezzlement, stealing of public funds. Whereas corruption is nothing more than an expression of dishonesty in all ramifications. Honesty, if you have all that, there will never be any situation of saying you are having corruption. But what Mr. President is doing, what EFCC, ICPC are on record to be doing, is fighting corruption at the top, but allowing corruption to grow from the bottom. What I see, especially on the streets, let me just give you one example and I stop there. When you see what commercial vehicles, drivers do on the road, it doesn't show that we are fighting corruption. Corruption can be fought at the grassroots level through education, but government is not funding that. ICPC does not even have money for that. So Transparency International, from their records, clearly shows that, look, it reflects what obtains in Nigeria.
Well, Mr. Gomez, Transparency International was very specific. They identified a number of issues. The absence of a national anti-corruption strategy, or what they call the legal framework, nepotism, favoritism in appointments, the absence of transparency in the management of the COVID-19 pandemic, and also bribery and extortion by the security agencies. And they called on the Nigerian government to address this. But the Nigerian government says, look, Transparency International is not being truthful, and that the basis for its conclusions is suspicious, and that the Nigerian government under President Buhari has done a lot more to address the issue of ghost workers, to put in place transparency, the single treasury account, IPs for payments, and also to ensure that corrupt persons are brought to book by the EFCC and the ICPC. What do you say to all
Okay, I have a lot to say to that. No, in the first instance, we're not being truthful to ourselves as Nigerians. We know within Nigeria, and that we're all Nigerians, we don't need to be deceiving ourselves, that the corruption level right now is the height of what we've ever been through. Now it's showing up in the Transparency International report. These are people that don't lie. They don't need to lie. They grade people based on what they see.
You can't be too sure. Because the government is saying some of the people behind this are opposition figures in Nigeria.
Well, if they are the Nigerians, how about the people that they did their report over abroad too? Are they saying, how about the people we've beaten, that we're ahead of or we're below? Are they? Yes, they have.
Germany, in
this
Berlin.
this is, you see, that's why we're deceiving. We keep deceiving ourselves in this country. We know there's the change that we were expecting. We got a change, but they gave us coins. We expect something that by this time we should be proud of our country. But this is not what we expect. If the Transparent International wasn't this the same Transparent International that said something about Jonathan as well? Well, they're the same people. They're saying that at that time now we're worse than what we were then. So the change is negative. It's not positive change. So the government should look at it, take a look at it, and justify it, and let them be aware of what is happening now. The corruption level is out of this world. You go to the airport, before you even pass through the gate, the custom officers, the immigration officers, they all want to extort you of money and everything. So we need to sit down as a country and find the solution to this corruption. We're not getting there, and we're even retrogressing. We're even going back. This is ridiculous as a country. We're not even planning for our children. I always talk about the children yet unborn. Is this what they're going to meet? They say, should stop all this game. We're tired. They need to let people know that, hey, we have a problem. How do we solve it? Let's go and solve it. Period. We shouldn't be going through all this. They want to see the report. We want to do this. That's not right. Right?
Well, Yemi Adamolekun, do we have the audio connection back? Are you there with us?
Yes, I am. Can you hear me?
Okay, quickly. We need to go on break in less than 2 minutes. If you could just comment on this.
Sure. Number one, it's very interesting. The government's track record is when a foreign ranking is negative, we criticize it, say it's the work of opposition, say they don't know what they're talking about. Or once somebody has a positive ranking for the government, then it becomes something that the administration references and quotes with pride. So that sort of gives you a context of the problematic response to something like this. Secondly, as Nigerians, we know what we know. As Mr. Gomez said, there was a sense that things would change in 2015, but in the last 5 years, we know that's not the case. From our own personal interactions to things you read in the pages of the newspaper, we know that's not the case. And then thirdly, just even recently, using the example of NSAS and the way the government tried to play off BBC versus CNN, both of them have now come out with clear reports about what happened at the Lekki toll gate. And now both Premium Times is quoting that the military have refused to participate in the panel. Well, and that shows again the use of information.
Yeah, on that note, let's take a quick commercial break. We'll be right back and the program will continue. Welcome back to Thisday Live, the Sunday talk show here on the Arise News channel. Still with me, I have in the studio Professor Bola Akinterinwa, Yemi Adamolekun, Wale Gomez, and Modele Sarafa-Yusuf. Modele, let me come to you very quickly on the subject of the service chiefs.
Of corruption, you mean?
Of corruption rather, yes.
Well, it's all been said.
Rating, yes.
Beg pardon?
Transparency International rating of Nigeria, yes.
Well, I'm not sure we need Transparency International to tell us that corruption is bad. Almost everybody you talk to would agree that we have a corruption problem. I'm more interested in what Wale said earlier, that what are the solutions? That's what we should start talking about. You can deny this from today till God's kingdom comes. If we don't do anything about it, we're just going to get worse and worse ratings, and the country will continue to go down the drain. I think that we should start to strengthen our oversight institutions to ensure that resources get to the people who are most in need. Anti-corruption authorities and institutions need to be overhauled and strengthened and funded properly to carry out their duties. I also think that the country should do more to ensure open and transparent contracting to combat wrongdoing and identify conflicts of interest, which is a really big problem in the public service. Also to ensure fair pricing so that government is getting value for whatever money that they're spending. We also need the civil society organizations, Yemi Adamolekun and people like that, should help us. We should encourage government or fight harder to defend democracy and promote the civic space so that we'll have the conditions to hold government accountable. For as long as they shout and we keep quiet, then we can't really hold government accountable, and corruption will continue to be a problem. Another thing is that government should try and please publish relevant data and guarantee access to information to ensure that the public receives easy, accessible, timely, and meaningful information. The kind of obstacles that Mr. APERE is putting on the way of getting information about who gets the 5,000 naira is a kind of thing that continues to present a problem. When I want to know who is getting this 5,000 that you're giving, please make the information accessible, because when you put all of those obstacles in the way and you are stonewalling and blocking the information, then people give up. And then when they give up, government does what it likes.
Well, let's take our final topic for the day, which is telecommunications companies that have now been licensed to register people who do not have national identity numbers in Nigeria to reduce the large crowds at the offices of the National Identity Management Commission. The Director General of the NIMC, as it is called, also announced that some other private and public organizations have been licensed by the Commission to avoid overcrowding at NIMC offices. This disclosure came after the Minister of Communications and Digital Economy, Issa Pantami, constituted a committee to address the demands of NIMC employees who went on a strike, protesting against the poor welfare and exposure to COVID-19. The Nigerian government had in December 2020 announced that all SIMs not registered with valid national identity numbers on the network of telecommunications companies would be blocked. It extended the deadline by 6 weeks for persons without the NIN. Despite the extension, the process has not been itch-free at the centers as crowds continued to besiege registration centers nationwide, with many calling for outright suspension of the registration process due to the violation of COVID-19 protocols. Yemi Adamolekun, let me come straight to you. I hope you already have your national identity number and you won't have to go and queue up at any office, either Telco office or NIMC office.
Yes, I do actually. So two things really quickly. I think it's important to tie what Ms. Modele was saying about corruption and solutions.
No, I already moved on to Telcos and NIN.
I'm tying it to this. Tying it to this.
Okay, so that you don't take us back.
Yeah, solutions are a function of political will or forcing government to do what it's supposed to do. So if you fast forward now to NIN, government is trying to fight COVID, yet they're telling people to go to NIMC offices, crowded, and go and sign up for NIN. As I've said this earlier, we have the data, we can connect it. Now we're giving telcos who already have bio data as a condition to get a SIM card. So why do they need to register for NIN again? You already have a database. There's nothing you are adding. Basically, you're adding more data to what you already have. So facilitate a process to just adding data and upgrading that. And why is it a telco that's doing that? Because the data already is there. So if you're going to get the data, why not get the biometric data from the telcos? And then lastly, Nigeria does not have a data privacy law. So all this is even problematic in empowering private companies to get data that's, in a sense, government data in a context where we don't have data privacy laws, which is, again, back to our conditional cash transfer. They cannot make the details of people who receive 5,000 naira public in terms of their name and their addresses. But Mr. APERE gave a pretty decent framework of how those people can be found, but we can't just publish their names because we don't even have the laws to protect them.
Well, Wale Gomez, your input, your take.
Yeah.
I hope you have your NIN already.
Yes, I do. I mean, yes, I do.
Okay. So we're making progress.
Yeah, I do. But the issue here is what Yemi just said. You bring in everybody together in a COVID center that everybody has been talking about. That I like solutions, and my solution is very easy. Those days, I mean, recently you can even get your number from a bank. Why can't we just do the same thing and get your NIM?
The banks that are digital.
Digital.
Not the analog ones.
And which one is analog? There are analog banks. Okay, cool. Well, some banks are analog. But you can go there and register your SIM card and, interface it so that things will be sorted out easily without this COVID protocol issue. So I think that the government should consider, because the crowd that you see there, they go even to immigration and you find crowd there. You go here, they find crowd there. They need to stop that. COVID is not a joke. They need to prioritize it. Either we get, and then what's the rush? Why are we in a rush to get this done? Why can't we just give people extended time so that they can do it properly and let people come there at their own will, at their own pace? Thank you.
Well, quickly, we have less than 2 minutes to go. Prof, quickly, in less than a minute, and then we go to Modele.
Yemi has said it all. I belong to her school of thought. And I share the viewpoint of Wale. The question is, why are we not making haste slowly? What really is the issue? I'm not against the idea of asking the telcos to do something there. But if you want to protect the secret life of beneficiaries of 5,000, why is it now that the issue of protection in the context of NIMC, ID cards, why are you revealing information on individuals? Inconsistent policies, most unfortunate.
Well, Modele, quickly, do you share the view that there should be a further extension beyond February 9 to give more people the opportunity to register their national identity?
Definitely, I think we should give more time for people to do this. The thing is, though, that this has been going on for a long time and people just didn't take it seriously. Since 2007, this was supposed to have, this rule was given, but people have just, like they do, they leave it till the last minute. But I really think because of this COVID thing, government should give more time. But let me quickly answer the question that the people have been asking. Why, when we have BVN, we have all of this, we have SIM registration, why are you doing this? That's because we had initially put the cart before the horse. What you should have first is the national ID card, which will allow you to go and do all of these other registrations.
Well, on that note, Modele will have to go and call it a day. Till next week. You've been watching Thisday Live, the Sunday talk show here on Arise News. I'm Ruben Abati. From our entire team here in Lagos, it's bye for now, and thank you very much for watching. We'll see you again next Sunday.